Hello everyone, this is Commander Omegon and welcome to my channel and the Warhammer community article about terrain rules and line of sight. As per usual, I'm a little bit late to the show, but this time I blame my work. Sorry about that. Warhammer 4000 new edition. So, we've told you how vehicles and big monsters are going to be even more frightening in the new edition, and how blessed weapons will offer many weapons a formidable advantage against more numerous enemies. But what about their would-be victims? Well, in line with feedback from our elite team of playtesters and you, the Warhammer 40,000 community, the terrain rules have undergone a radical overhaul, aimed at providing a more balanced and immersive gaming experience. Here's the lowdown on some of the key changes. Terrain categories. All terrain types now fit into 4 categories: hill, obstacle, area terrain and buildings. How units interact with them depends not just on the nature of terrain itself, but on the unit's own size and what type of unit they are. For example, hills are essentially a part of the battlefield for all intents and purposes, so are treated as open ground and offer no form of protection. Obstacles, on the other hand, are a foot slogger's best friend, as they offer the benefit of cover, which for the most part means +1 to your saving throw against ranged weapons. 2. Infantry, beast or swarm units if the obstacle is in the way of the firing units. So, it does not give cover to bikes and tanks. So far, tanks are not changed at all of how it all works. But it is interesting to note for your infantry, beasts and swarms, when you shoot over an obstacle, doesn't matter if they are in terrain or not, they will receive the benefits of cover. Which is interesting, a bit like how it used to be. And that's good. As you can see here, the wall of martyrs, the unit behind it and inside it gets cover, which makes sense. The infantry at least. Terrain traits. When setting up a battlefield, you and your opponent decide which terrain trait will be applied to each piece of scenery. The traits are designed to be stackable, so a single piece of terrain can actually be given as many different traits as you wish. For example, you may decide to count a bunker as both light and heavy cover, offering the benefits of cover at every range. Light cover. When an attack made with a ranged weapon wounds a model that is receiving the benefits of cover from this terrain feature, add 1 to the saving throw made against that attack. Invulnerable saving throws are not affected. So this is basically how we are used to cover working in 8th edition, with the added benefits with obstacles, obviously. That you do not need to be in them, but behind them or in them. This one is a new one though. Heavy cover. When an attack made with a melee weapon wounds a model that is receiving the benefits of cover from this terrain feature, add 1 to the saving throw made against that attack. Unless the model making the attack made a charge move this turn. Invulnerable saving throws are not affected. So heavy cover means you get a +1 to your saving throw in close combat. Now that is interesting, that's really interesting. The only exception to this is if you are the charging unit and you are getting wounded, which makes sense. For example, when you are inside the bunker, it's more easily to get defensive than when you are charging a bunker. This is an interesting new change. And I like it. You can pick traits that will have more specific effects on the game, clarifying such details whether or not a terrain is scalable, breachable, or even unstable. One of the real game changes is obscuring trait. Not only does it offer an area of the battlefield that blocks a line of sight, but the largest model can still be targeted. After all, an Imperial Knight towers over all but the largest buildings, making its bulky carapace an easy target, yet it would be all but impossible for its gun to match the same firing angles in return. Which makes sense. If this terrain feature is at least 5 inches high, then models cannot see through or over this terrain feature. This means that one model is not visible to another if you cannot draw a straight line 1 mm in thickness between them without passing through or over any part of the terrain feature. The height of a terrain feature is measured from the highest point of that terrain feature. The way I'm reading this, it's all a model to model, not a unit to unit measurement. Interesting. Models that are on or within this terrain feature can be seen and targeted normally. I wonder what they mean with normally. For example, if there is a wall, can you target it through it? Or if you cannot see them because of the wall, can you not target them? I hope the former, because some terrain are just blocks. Remember, you cannot see through it. Sorry about that. You cannot see through it, but you can see in it and you can see out of it. Aircraft models and models with a wound characteristic of 18 or more are visible and can be targeted even if this terrain feature is between it and the firing model. Note the reverse is not true. So far for only one model, I have my doubts about if this is good. For all the others, yeah, fair enough. I mean, a knight needs to walk around a ruin to be able to target. And, well, with the movement they have, with the reach they have, it should be possible. And an aircraft has more than enough movement for that to do. The only model that I am thinking of that it is a bit strange for is the Triumph of Saint Catherine. I believe it has 18 wounds. It is not that a low model, but I would not put it on the same grounds as an aircraft or a knight. So for that single model, it did not become any better. At least they can now get some. I don't know. That model just got worse. I don't think mine will get any practical use in the game anytime soon. Another important point is to note that even though obscuring terrain blocks line of sight from one side to another, a unit that inside the terrain can still be freely targeted, though they will receive the benefit of cover if the terrain also has the light cover trait, and can fire in return. However, the days of drawing line of sight through a gap in the wall and 3 consecutive windows to a unit on the opposite of a huge building are over. This feels a little bit like that true line of sight is no longer a thing. With terrain, that is. Meaning, a feature does not... let's say differently. a rune is more representative than what it actually looks like. And that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. To make it easy, the Warhammer 4000 rulebook includes some handy guidelines for which terrain traits to apply to the most common piece of terrain. Ruins. Area terrain, scalable, reachable, light cover, defensible, obscuring. Scalable, I reckon, is that you can use your movement to walk up vertically. The others, no idea. Same with exposed position. Maybe when you are on top of it, you do not receive any cover. But we'll see that. At the end of the terrain section, there's a number of example battlefields presented, each explaining the thought process behind the terrain selection and the positioning. This is really useful advice, as getting the quantity and density of terrain right is a key factor for playing a balanced game of Warhammer 40,000. After all, too little terrain and shooting armies will have massive advantage, too much melee will likely dominate. The Strike Force Battlefield 44x60 has fewer terrain features set up than the one below. The terrain has still been set up so as not to give an advantage to one player or the other. And there is still terrain set up in the middle that blocks visibility from one side of the battlefield to the other. As a result, the battlefield would still make for a good matched play game. Battlefields with less terrain than this will start to advantage armies that rely on shooting over melee. This Strike Force Battlefield setup with an ideal number and mixture of terrain features. The placement of the terrain features creates a battlefield that does not give advantage to one or another, making it well suitable to a typical match play game. While this battlefield uses lots of the Sector Imperialis terrain features. By bearing in mind the concept discussion above, you can achieve the same gaming experience using different kinds of terrain features. And that is interesting indeed. Different ways of building terrains means that not every battlefield needs to feel like it's one and the same battlefield. And then finally, a number of you have been getting in touch regarding the minimum size battlefields. Measurements we introduced in last week's article. We're happy to confirm you that yes, you can still use your 4x6 or larger gaming tables, be they gorgeously detailed realm of battle boards or lovingly created battlefields of your own design. The minimum size battlefield guidelines for combat patrol, incursion, strike force and onslaught battles are just that, minimum. They have been specifically designed to make the game more accessible and compact at smaller games and to fit the most dining room tables. But they can just as easily be played on a larger battlefield as you see fit. The minimum sizes also ensure that armies in bigger games won't be cramped on a battlefield that's too small for them. So we'll still have plenty of room to maneuver. So that's the scoop on terrain rules, and tomorrow we'll be discussing unit that casually soars straight over it, flyers. Until then, let us know your thoughts on the future of terrain on the Warhammer 40,000 Facebook page and leave your thoughts and comments down below. Well, that was it also for me.